Hello, it's Mike from Dimensional Walking. Today we're going to talk about a unresolved mystery, another unresolved mystery. Okay, and this one is about, and you've probably been hearing some vibes about this. This is a little bit of an old one, although it's keeps on rearing its head up to want you or want all of us to pay attention to it. But, anyways, this is about this South Korean um, down super large UFO that was down with the supposed secret weapon. Okay. And I have to tell you, I know a little bit about secret weapons. I've done a lot of work with aerospace companies and had conversations with people that knew about secret laser weapons, etc. So I have a little bit of a appreciation of them, and I do know they do exist. Okay, I don't know if they existed back in the 90s when this incident supposedly happened. I don't know anything much about what goes on in South Korea. I know more about what goes on here in the United States. But bottom line is, let's talk about this. So for years, a rumor was circulated kind of by the defense circles in Seoul, Korea, Washington D.C., and Tokyo. So the rumor was very persistent. Okay, but it was oddly consistent, persistent and consistent, and it refuses to basically die. It claims that South Korea once brought down this massive UFO using this experimental energy weapon. Okay. And the craft was so enormous that the military had to hollow out an entire mountainside, okay, to contain it. Okay. Whether this is buried truth or modern myth, the details line up in many ways that I kind of, at times when I look through all this research, that really kind of give you this, hair on your neck types, it's standing up on your neck type stuff. So most of the versions of the story uh, kind of take the event between the years 1993 and 1996. So what happened was the South Korean air defense radar picked up this colossal object drifting in from the East China Sea. It wasn't flying. It wasn't maneuvering. You know, um, it was just moving. It was very silent. It was smoothly without any propulsion systems that you could tell. And the thing about it is, it was 300 meters or approximately 300 yards plus long. So that'd be bigger than, let's see, a 747. It would be bigger than most nuclear submarines. It would be bigger than most skyscrapers. Okay, it was huge. Okay, and I don't think at the time they were worried about it was coming from China. They really didn't. I think they kind of determined right away it wasn't human. It wasn't made by humans or anything else. So they really felt this was something very, very different. Okay. So, anyways, so they scrambled up some fighter jets and they got their ground military batteries hooked onto the target. But apparently they tried to communicate with it, but there was no return signal. And I'm sure they just wanted to say, "Hey, who are you? What are you?" etc. So then something happened. Okay, so South Korea, as you probably know or don't know, is a pretty technologically advanced then and now. Now, did they have a directed energy weapon, as they call them, in the early 90s? That would sound a bit like science fiction. Even though I had talked to somebody years ago that had told me that we had some type of weapon, and he always talked about it as a laser. And let me just tell you this: this guy was. I can't give you any details about his name. I can't give you a lot of things, but I'm just telling you, this guy was well connected. very well connected. That's all I'm going to say. And he said, yeah, we got stuff. We got stuff. Okay. So is it possible that if we had stuff during that time that South Korea did? Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I think it's possible. So there were some insiders from Korea that claimed that there was a prototype system, possibly some kind of microwave based or a high energy laser. Okay. And it was stationed at uh, Deong or Daejeon as part of a classified missile defense program. Okay. And of course, as you all know, South Korea is always concerned about North Korea, and they're real close. I mean, the borders obviously are right next to each other, and they're both fairly small countries. They're not big countries at all, so it's hard to get away from each other easily. So, anyways, this object drifted towards a populated region and refused to alter course. And of course, the South Koreans supposedly gave the order to engage. Okay. So this was in over a rural area. Witnesses reported a white flash in the sky. Okay. And typically a white flash, my understanding is that would be a directed weapon, a directed high energy weapon, this flash thing. It doesn't do an explosion, it's just a flash. Doesn't make a sonic boom. It's just a silent pulse of light. The object did not blow apart. It simply lost power and started falling like a falling leaf the size of a stadium, or actually, I guess it'd be even bigger than the stadium at 300 meters or 300 yards or whatever. So, anyways, and I just want to make a comment. I've been in the UFO thing for over 50 some years, and I've heard and talked to a lot of people about UFOs, and sometimes when the power is lost on a UFO, what they do is instead of crashing, many of them don't. And there are some that have just crashed, but there's been some that just floated down. And what they do is, if you can see this, what I'm doing, this is this leaf coming down, and that's what it looks like. It's really strange, very strange. Okay. So, anyways, this thing lands or crashes, I guess we'll say. I guess it is a crash still, even if it is coming down like a leaf. And so this crashed in this kind of remote mountain valley. And anyways, so the story continues that the craft was too big to move by either the air or the road, which makes sense. That's huge. So the military decided to take some drastic steps. So they carved directly into a mountain, this thing that kind of temporary hold this craft, okay? And I think eventually they do bury it, by the way. So the villagers that were there was villages around this what is happening, and the people were told that they were going to have to move them, temporary relocate them, which I think this was confirmed. There was people that were relocated, and because they were talking about some kind of a landslide prevention program they were doing. It was the only interesting thing is the stuff I read about was that they were saying that, this is really weird because suddenly we were going to move for this landslide thing, and I guess they could have gave everybody warning, but apparently they didn't for some reason. So there were satellite images from that time frame that showed these unusual earthworks over these several mountain regions around where this craft supposedly crashed. So, anyways, inside, so they created this kind of cavern thing, where inside this cavern, well, it isn't so much they created it, I should say, because of the crash itself, it kind of created a cavern and they kind of made it bigger so they could kind of cover it up, okay, basically. So then they found this big hull, this big metalish hull that resisted cutting, resisted drilling, and resisted melting. So does that sound familiar? It does. And there was also they found this gravity manipulation chamber that was flickering on and off for several days. Then there was also this. what they call the central core, and it was emitting this low frequency vibration, which seemed to cause nausea and hallucinations. Any human that would get near it, so they stayed away from it. And there was also these symbols that were etched into the interior surfaces, unlike anything they'd ever seen before. Probably similar, I would only guess, that the hieroglyphics looking ones that were found in Roswell. That's what my feelings are, anyways. So, uh, so some of the versions of the people that were telling these stories over the years say that the craft was completely empty. Others say it wasn't. Um, but all agree that whatever was inside that mountain has basically changed South Korea's defense posture ever since. So, what else? South Korea, as you probably know, lives under this constant existential threat. A discovery like this would unstabilize the whole region. Okay, I think two things would unstabilize it. First, that this gigantic thing crashed. Okay, and secondly, that South Korea had this weapon to bring it down. I think both those things, in my estimation, would be very destabilizing. So some of the things that would probably happen if this, came to the surface. Of course, China would probably demand they wanted access right away, right? No, North Korea would probably claim that it was theirs, and the U.S. would probably insist on kind of a joint control of it, and I think Japan would probably just panic. Okay, so burying the craft literally would be the only way to keep the situation contained. Okay, with the energy weapon, if the weapon truly worked, even once, that would mean that South Korea briefly held the most advanced defensive technology on Earth, which would be pretty amazing, especially for for South Korea. Over the years, strange breadcrumbs have surfaced. There's been some retired officers hinting at the incident, but that they couldn't discuss it. Satellite anomalies showing geometric heat signatures inside the mountains. U.S. intelligence personnel's visiting remote military Korean bases during this time frame. And there was this sudden 1990s budget spike for deep geological engineering. Okay, I think that was for the United States. So none of this really proves anything, but this whole thing refuses to fade. If it is true, then somewheres in South Korea, okay, a mountain is hiding this silent giant, a craft that defies physics until the night it crossed the wrong border. And if the energy weapon that brought it down was real, then humanity may have already taken its first shot in a conflict we don't yet understand. Okay? So, there's some questions here. Let's ask some of these questions. Why would South Korea be the only nation to successfully down a craft this large? Okay, well, I don't believe that. I think I don't know if there was this large, but I think there was a series of crafts in New Mexico way back that were downed, and they downed those crafts. My understanding, I lived in New Mexico for many years. That they downed these crafts with special types of radar, so it'd be kind of a microwave situation, and I think they had that back in the 40s and the 50s, late 40s, early 50s. So, could the energy weapon have been something maybe that was reverse engineered from earlier incidents? Sure, could be. Are there other mountain areas rumored to contain similar objects? Absolutely. So, if they brought one down, was it alone? So, is there more? Is there more that we can talk about here? So, I'm going to do a part two about this in a week or so. I think there's more information that I'm going to be able to find and dig out. I'm going to look through some of my stuff I had from when I was in New Mexico I got a lot of files that have some pretty interesting stuff, and I'll try to share that with you in a week or so. So happy trails until we meet again. We'll see you. Bye bye.